Hi, my name's Robert Cubitt and I'm an author. You can call me Bob if you want. These are some of the 31 books that I've written since 2012. At the back here, we've got the very first books. Before I started getting a little bit more ambitious, and here we have a 9-book science fiction series, which was my next major project, which moved on to a 9-book World War II series, which actually went a little bit further than World War II and actually took us into the 1970s. But they started off in World War II. And finally, 2 non-fiction books. This one in particular is very special to me, and I'll be featuring this a little bit later in the series. What many people don't realise is that every book has 2 stories. There's a story, of course, that's in the cover, within the covers. That's the story that the author wants to tell you. But the second story is actually how the book came to be written in the first place. And some of those, and very often those stories don't get told, which is why I'm making this series of videos. Each one tells the story of one of my books and how it became written. So we're starting back around about 2009, 2010 with The Inconvenience Store. The first book I considered worthy of publication. I'd written other books before, but this was the first one that I considered to be good enough to actually publish, put out there for people to read. The title's a bit of an odd one, and I came up with the title before I actually knew what I was going to do with it. So how did I come up with The Inconvenience Store? Well, it started one evening when I went up to our local convenience store to get something to go with our dinner. I asked the guy behind the counter if they stocked a certain product because I couldn't find it on the shelves. And he said, no, we don't sell that. There's no demand for it. So I said, well, that sounds like more of an inconvenience than a convenience. And he says, absolutely, we're an inconvenience store really, I suppose. So that was it. I had a title all of a sudden. I thought it was really interesting, intriguing, but I didn't actually know what to do with it at that point. So I do what I always do when that comes along. I just let it sit there in my brain and let my subconscious work on it for a while, and eventually something will come forward. And that's exactly what happened this time. The first inconvenience about the Inconvenience Store is you can't find it. The store has to find you. The store recognizes that you need something and it has it, and so it comes looking for you. I think that we can agree that a store that you can't find is pretty inconvenient, isn't it? But it's more than that. The store doesn't sell any of the things you want. Not at all. That has to be inconvenient, doesn't it? But what the store does sell is stuff that you don't want. At least you don't know you want it until the very moment that you see it. Then you realise it's what you've needed all your life but haven't been able to find. So let's say it sells something like this, a TV remote control. But instead of changing channels, it can change somebody's personality. Now, I think we can agree that we've all wanted to be able to do that at some point in our lives. We've just never had the device that would allow us to do it. That's a pretty powerful piece of equipment to put in somebody's hands, isn't it? So therefore, there has to be some consequences. Something has to go wrong for the characters if the story is to work. And that's exactly what happens. They use the device, something happens, something else happens that they didn't want, and they get themselves into all sorts of bother because of that. But what sort of bother do they get into? You're going to have to read The Inconvenience Store to find out.